It never gets old. You know, it's been a while, but it never gets old. Boys, we're back. We're back for season 2. Season 2 of That Helps No One. FantasyCast. Thno for short. Short folks. Or just for short.
Just killing it.
Right there.
That's why they allow me to run this, because I can say whatever I want and it goes fine. How are all you guys doing?
No complaints.
On DP, buddy.
I just wanted Chris to say something first.
I know you did.
Guys, don't smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for all the kids out there?
Stay in school and don't do drugs.
Good enough.
Can we talk about your voice? What's happening there? Tell a little story. Get the crowd.
So this is actually an improvement. But I got cross-checked in the throat playing lacrosse 2 weeks ago, and I sound like this now.
Forever?
I don't know. I haven't gone to a doctor.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. That would probably be my first choice after getting cross-checked in the throat. But
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to swallow anymore. So I don't know.
Oh, wow.
At this point, it's
Bonus
just
for you.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm a spitter, anyways.
Jesus.
Wow. How's it going, Ted?
We're starting off real good in season 2 here.
Very strong. Very strong.
I'm just trying to share a little tweet that we're live and
Okay.
You just hit it. Spitty.
Okay, Steve, good to see you again. Tarp's partially off. You decided that sleeves are too much for you, so that's cool.
Sleeves are always a little too much, but in the summer they just got to go. I'm a very warm human being. Warmth with more warmth. You don't want to be sweating everywhere, so sleeves come off.
That's fair.
I always found you to be very cold.
No, that's my personality.
It's not the same, but kind of the same.
Hang on. I got something to say, you guys. Renaya Tusasopo ruined Manti Te'o's life. I'm still pissed about this. I saw the documentary finally. Ted, you told me to watch it. I was definitely Chris. I know you're halfway through.
Wow.
Not ruining anything you haven't.
No,
He ruined that man's life.
I haven't watched any of it yet, so spoiler alert.
I'm only on episode 1, so don't ruin
Why
it.
are they running that man's name?
It's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler, guys.
Yeah. Why are they running that man's name through the mud when it really is fake Lene that did all the damage? I'm not a big fan of that, personally. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Ted, any comments on 10 years ago?
I just remember, I remember the time, when it happened, what was going on, and how it was just everything was brought up. Is this guy is he just stupid? Is he just trying to cover up his sexual orientation? Was he completely being taken advantage of? Is he making it up? It was basically every possible thing that you could think was being thrown out there, and nobody really knew the real story. And I definitely did not until watching this doc.
Clearly, you guys haven't had an online girlfriend before, so it's real.
So this thing is 100% worth watching, because it was the story back then. People who had no even care about the NFL.
No even care.
Knew what was up with this for sure. It was perfect English.
I kind of wish Chris said no even care. That would have made more sense. Oh, did he decide to go mute there?
I think he muted himself.
Oh yeah, no even care.
Very happy about that. We should also mention, Ted's probably the only proper sponsored person on the show. We've got Manscaped with us for a month or so. 20% off, manscaped.com, free shipping, BBHV20. We can thank Chris for that when he had a normal voice back in the day. Feel free to go to manscaped.com.
Hey, man.
It's a paid
normal voice or sounding like this. I'm still big time into that BBHV.
I bet you are.
Yeah. Actually, probably even more so now. This voice has turned me into a bigger perv, and I'm like, I need all those big boobs and hairy vaginas.
Wow, we're 10 all over again.
Ever.
Do you guys want to talk about? Oh,
Chris just sounds like he's come off of the biggest bender ever.
I
smoking packs of dots and drinking Colt 45s.
I came back from, because of course it was an entire lacrosse weekend. So I come back and people are like, oh, you were obviously yelling a lot all weekend, and I'm like, nope, I just sound like this now because I got cross-checked in like directly in the Adam's apple.
Do you have an I can't actually see. Do you still have an Adam's apple?
I'm pointing at it on my screen actually, but no one can see that. So let's talk some football, because I mean, people, as funny as we are, people probably want to know a little bit about fantasy football, because really, we are the absolute chosen place. Footballs and fantasies. Right before we started, we were going through some pictures from last season, and I don't know how this one got saved, but it really got us curious as to what were they thinking. Can anybody read that out there? It looks, from the name of the game, I think he has 4 followers, maybe tweeted 3 times. This was one of them. Without the Always 94, I would have never started the RBI draft in the first round. Oh, that's Najee. Najee Harris, in case you're wondering. Longtime listener, first-time tweeter. World's okayest fantasy football advice. You guys, I am going to bring it twice as hard. I'm going to tell you, Derrick Henry, probably not someone you should be drafting at all this year. He's going to get injured in the first game of the season. I'm just saying.
Wow.
But that's we're gonna save that.
He says this while wearing a Titans jersey too.
Yeah.
This is Chris Johnson.
Nothing. Oh,
don't disrespect him.
Thanks for the clarification. I had no idea.
Don't disrespect. This is a former Titan. We're talking about the current Titans. Chris.
Oh, okay.
You can take your Marlboros and you can just wait a second, okay? Thank you. So there's a few things we want to talk about, because
probably going to be your over/under that's injured first game of the season thing.
Probably will be, knowing us. We're very predictable. So there's a couple things. Draft strategy. What do you guys normally do for your draft strategy, as far as like previous years, not this year? Although if you want to tell me, that would really help out. What do you guys like? Are you running back? Do you go with 3 wideouts first? Like what seems to make the most sense? What have you guys won with? Because I don't know. I've never been a champion. So what has worked for you? Do you remember? Like Chris, you're probably the most recent winner in our league anyway, our little whistleblowing unicorns league. So like what turned you into a champion?
I've always been heavy running back. You live by the running back, you die by the running back, and that's kind of always been my strategy, is to have top end
draft
guys.
Them or start like RBR, like just in general, or
draft them, start them. I mean, our league's a little bit different because we have so many.
I might start them.
Yeah. I mean, if I have to, but like we have so many positions in our league where you have to start wide receivers. So that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
For our league, of course. But I mean, the first year I won, I had Alvin Kamara and Todd Gurley as my running backs. Last year was, I mean, who would have thought it was Rashad Penny and Josh Jacobs that were, and Javonte Williams that kind of, led the way for me in the championship. So that's kind of always been my strategy, is try to load up on running backs, a bit to the, detriment of my wide receivers. There's been multiple times that I'm looking at my wide receivers and thinking, shit, I should have drafted another guy, or shit, I need to make a trade, or whatever it may be. So
right.
It's, I mean, trying to go too heavy at one position, it hurts you in other areas, right?
So Ted, you kind of, I know you're chomping at the bit because you
no.
the opposite.
I'm just curious, like if you can go, so your first 4 picks, then you're trying to make a build, first 5 picks or whatever. What's your ideal situation?
First 5 picks, I'm probably taking at least 3 running backs. Whether that be, Ted. And that's, I mean, I usually try to go. Again, draft position plays a big part too, but I typically try to go RB with my first 2 picks. But again, draft position determines so much.
I feel like every year it kind of gets, it's a little different based on the makeup of teams and who's in a committee, who's, the outright bell cow. But and Ted and I have talked about this all the time, there are so few pure bell cows in the league, and it's getting fewer and fewer, I find, every year we play.
Mm-hmm.
That if you can get your hands on one of those guys, like Chris said, if you're drafting towards the top of the rounds and you can get your hands on a Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey kind of deal,
Yeah.
you're stupid not to take those guys because there's just so few of them available, as opposed to, well, we know there's at least 30, whatever, 40, 50 wide receiver ones potentially that you can take. Bell cows, there might be less than 10 of them in the entire league. So
let alone elite ones that are going to get you extra points.
Right. And then it also depends on whether you're in a standard league, whether you're half PPR, whether you're full PPR. Like Chris mentioned, in our league, we have a lot of wide receivers that we start, and we've got a flex that's a wide receiver tight end, and we've got 2 other flexes. So, PPR means points per reception. I'm so glad you kept that graphic.
That's what I'm here for.
For those
what does half PPR mean?
So when it splits, sometimes it sprays to the.
Damn it, we don't have a graphic for that, Ryan.
We don't. If I Google that, I have to throw this computer away. So
when it splits, it's not. It's obviously it's a good strategy. I think there's like so many people that employ the strategy too, which is also part of the difficult part of doing it, right? Like, but if you are that guy that picks early and you can go running back, or however it is that you do it, it does give you that sort of extra trade capital throughout the course of the season. If you feel like you need to make a split decision and you need to double up and get your hands on a good tight end and a good wide receiver, maybe you can swap out a solid, a low end RB1 or a high end RB2 for a wide receiver one or a tight end one or something like that, or a package deal that includes maybe 2 guys like that.
I also just think it is easier to find a wide receiver than it is one of those, top end.
I agree. Totally agree.
Mr.
Top
Freeze.
ends. So it could be anything. It could be a top end kicker. He was going to say top end. What, Chris? We missed it.
Did I freeze?
You did. It was top end and then vanished.
Just vanished. Gone.
Yeah.
That must be why I got the oops. Somebody's stream is not working. Then it was mine. It's so much harder to find those top end running backs. I mean, you look at a team like Cincinnati, and they've got Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. I mean, obviously Jamar Chase is the alpha there, but T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd aren't a bad option, right? Whereas trying to find that top end running back, typically you want to avoid committees. You want the guy that is the guy.
Yeah, or as close to, right?
Yeah, unless it's a true 50. I mean, Cleveland with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Okay, that's not a bad committee to have. Last year I had Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. That worked out really well because it was a fair split, and guys that could, at least with the limited amount of touches that they had, were still able to be super productive. But that's very few and far between to find those situations.
Yeah, where they're splitting. Like even the Rams kind of had, before he got injured, but like Akers and like they kind of had the kind of the split there too. And they may even, I know Akers is probably going to be the guy to start anyway, but it's a good chance that they're going to spread the ball around in the backfield for them anyway.
There's also value in that too, with when you have a one of those committees where both guys are productive together at the same time. I mean, we all know that running backs, Chris said, live and die by them. Well, it's the most injury prone position in the league. But if you had I'm going to my situation, I had Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. If Aaron Jones goes down, I'm okay starting AJ Dillon as an RB1 because he's putting up high end RB2 numbers with Aaron Jones on the field. So those guys, like that's that second tier of guys where you get a high end starter, but like I was saying, there's so few that are just the pure outright bell cow. We'll go to Cincinnati's situation again. Joe Mixon, nobody's contesting him for touches at all, but I think there's maybe 7 or 8 of those guys in the entire league. So if I don't get them, you're crazy to go somewhere else, in my opinion.
I totally agree. Like I totally agree with how many of those guys I think are in the league, which is why my strategy is like completely different over the years. And obviously I've lost to Chris in back-to-back seasons, so maybe he's got my kryptonite and he knows something I don't know about how to draft your team. But I have won before, and I've won on this strategy. And my strategy is that you're going to go You got to get yourself one back that you feel really good about. Like get yourself a Nick Chubb, somebody where there's going to be a strong backup that you can get your hands on later. And then I'm going and I don't care what order, I just have to get that back that I feel good about, but it's only one. And then I'm going wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. I want to stack
you've
up
done
on
that for
wide
years
receivers
too.
every year. Like every year, that's my strategy. And part of that has to do with, I never really get the early pick in the drafts, even when it's like, a lottery from the start. I always seem to pick, 6, 7, 8 or something like that. Right.
Make friends with that guy too, folks. Ted and I have this. I always go the opposite. So I'm the guy that goes for the running backs. You have the wideouts, and it always seems like we need the other guy's position like mid-season. Like everyone has a trade partner in every league, right? Like you've got a guy that you can go to. You might have a few guys that you can go to, but if you know how somebody drafts, pay attention to that because they're going to need one of your people. And I mean, you're not exposing them. You kind of.
It's just going to take Ryan 2 days to come around to making the trade. But yeah,
I'm not good at trading.
But that's my thing, right? I want to rule the roost when it comes to receivers, right? I want to have all the capital so that even if I'm making trades to remove a receiver from my roster, I can easily plug in a wide receiver too. That's high end, right? So I can make that move off my roster from my bench and still be stocking and stacking ridiculously good receivers and try to get my hands on running backs. So obviously I'm targeting running backs in later rounds that are going to have, because there's so many of these guys that are timeshare. Like I just want to be part of the timeshare now because so many other GMs are also going to be part of that timeshare. And if somebody like Chris has 3 or 2 good running backs right off the start, that's already going to be that's going to be an area of expertise that I'm going to try to stay away from, right? I don't want to be in that bidding war to try to get these top end backs because they're just not going to be available to me. So I got to try to double up somewhere else, right? Positional value.
I've got another thing that I wanted to get into, and Ted, we were chatting about this the other day. So you had your draft, which is why we've postponed this till today. You had a draft on Tuesday, which is great. There's no way you were gonna miss a draft to do this.
Yeah, what a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So what happened was, and we've been chatting about this as far as a draft app or your fantasy app for whatever sport. I mean, we're talking about football. There's, NFL.com, ESPN, Yahoo. We're on Sleeper for a few of them. CBS, if I didn't mention already. There's a bunch of different ones out there. But how important is the draft or your fantasy app? Because Ted, you got a nice little story from Tuesday.
Yeah, well, in the case of like Tuesday, the NFL draft app was terrible. Like I showed up like 10 minutes before the draft or whatever, and I go to log in and you get that little circle, the loading circle of death.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing was happening. There's nothing going on, right? So you chime in, hey, like, what's the deal? Anybody loading for it? No, like we're all drafting mobile today. I kind of want to draft from my phone. Like I don't want to sit at my computer desk and look at my screens, do my research, and scroll through my phone to do it. And then it's loading so poorly that you go to pick J.K. Dobbins in the 5th round or whatever, and it accidentally drafts you Lamar Jackson, which is great. I'm happy with Lamar Jackson, but that's not the round that I want to get Lamar in, right? Like especially when Josh Allen is still on the board. Like what the heck is going on, right? So I'm that guy. I drafted the quarterback for the Ravens because that's my new favorite team, apparently. Way too early. And then it proceeds to send the next 2 picks away from Adam. So I didn't get to make a pick for like 3 rounds, but like whatever, it worked out. So this was a pretty shitty draft experience, right? I mean, I think we've all had better apps that we've worked. This was not the one. This was not. Part of the problem is that it's the biggest fantasy football engine out there, and the servers just can't handle that many people being on it.
What's the weirdest or like worst place you guys have ever drafted from on your phones?
Side of the highway.
Side of the highway.
I think it was your work league, Ted. This was the first year, and you guys were drafting during the day, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And I was coming back from a job site, and I'm coming the highway passing the airport there, and I knew like I'm getting close. I'm like, I'm not gonna make it in time to stop somewhere. So I pulled over on the highway like 5 times. like okay, and I kind of had over them. Like I know, and I can hear like blah blah blah, and all of a sudden you're on the clock. I'm like, shit, I gotta pull out here, and like okay, click. Because I think that was the year I didn't have like a pick to like the 4th round or something.
Yeah, it was no pick to like the 4th round, and like back when data was like so expensive.
So I'm thankfully work pays for it, but
trying to like T9 from his phone.
Yeah. No, I don't want him. So yeah, I would say for me, side of the highway would be I don't recommend it. It's also super dangerous, and hopefully there's no police officers watching this. So,
Ted,
what you guys?
This sounds like a first time story, but it was an NFL. It wasn't an NFL. It was an NHL draft actually. But I was like in the mall bathroom because I was like working the late shift, and like we didn't have a bathroom in our store at the time.
Right,
I was working like at the store, and so I had to go to the bathroom. And I get this quick text like, "Hey, like, why are you not logged in? You picking 3 picks or whatever?" And I was like in the bathroom, so I just like sat there on the toilet making picks. It was great.
You logged out while you logged in.
Yeah, I logged out and logged us.
Yeah,
it was an NHL draft, but I was definitely taking the Browns to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, multi-sport drafter. Steve, how about you?
Speaking of multi-sport drafting, the league that I just joined, which is super weird and wild, has all 4 of the major sports, and you can trade
NASCAR.
Right, NASCAR. You can trade a football player for a hockey player. You can trade in a baseball pick for a basketball pick. I had my first draft. I totally forgot about it. And it just so happened to be my daughter's birthday party down at Pritchard Park here on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not driving all the way home because it's still her birthday, but my phone's dying.
Oh, so no.
I got to figure this out quick. So I sat in my truck outside of the beach during my daughter's birthday party and drafted. So that was fun. Weird, very weird. I got a lot of weird looks, but
absentee father, like, are you in this league? No.
Was that the same year that you won Dad of the Year?
Not this year. Not even runner up.
Yeah, because you're gonna win. So obviously,
she won't be crying when I pay for a sweet present once I win this league.
That's awesome.
$170 league championship.
Yeah, Chris, how about you? Weirdest or wildest?
I guess pretty boring in comparison, guys. I've drafted at work. I've drafted at home. And that's crazy. Like, I don't think I've ever drafted on my phone ever.
I've done a few on my phone.
Recommend it.
Yeah, no, I've never done a draft on my phone. So yeah, I remember when I used to work at Budget, and I used to spend like hours on a Sunday just doing like multiple drafts all day long, which not advisable because then you have so many teams. You're like, how do I even keep track of all this? But it was like,
well, plus you're just making sure you get enough smoke breaks in the day too, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was sitting there hacking darts at the desk and making, Sean Alexander no matter what.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Sean Alexander no matter what. Love it.
So didn't get him, had to, chain smoke another one.
Heads up, man. It's bad for your health. I don't know if anyone spoke to that.
Don't do it, kids. You'll sound like this one day.
That's true. I mean, you could look like that. So maybe there's a side bonus there. You might look like it, but you also sound like it. So you win some, you lose some. So we have a new segment. We may or may not keep it depending on how this goes. You guys have all heard of Draft Kings. Well, here at Thno, we have Draft Things. Very similar. Very similar. So we're going to pick, there was a few ways we could have gone about this. We're going to do some random things that we might suggest that you could bet on if this was available on a betting site. So the first one goes to Chris. This is actually just a simple yes or no. Russell Wilson this week or week 1, a 2-touchdown quarter. Yes or no?
So like just 2 touchdown quarter, not like
at least one, yeah.
Not 2 touchdowns every quarter, and he has 8 touchdowns.
I mean, that's possible. That would be definitely a big first game for the Broncos, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would probably take that bet.
2-touchdown quarter. Okay.
Yeah, at least, yeah,
okay.
I would probably take that bet.
It's definitely possible. It just seems something fair, something you could bet on. Steve, this is going to be your favorite for sure. Over under 1.5. An O lineman scoring a touchdown in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys followed the show last season, that was my go-to almost every week, because guess what? Every single week it seemed like a big man was catching a touchdown, and for 1 yard, of course, right? That was the 1-1-1, 1 catch, 1 touchdown, 1 yard.
Yeah.
I would have to have the odds, but you're not going to win a lot of money by betting no, which is the obvious answer because
No, it's not a no. It's a 1.5. So does 2
Oh yeah,
or
1.5. Well, the obvious answer would be that 1 or less are going to be scored.
Mhm.
But the odds on that are probably so low that I would try and get some money by picking big men they've got hands, and
Big man with football.
I have hands too, Steve.
No, you don't. I've seen you use those things.
This is
if you were
clearly
better
why
at using them, maybe you could have protected your throat.
This is clearly why Steve doesn't gamble. Oh,
That's true. Why don't you gamble?
Because he wastes his money on stupid bets.
Yeah, like if someone's going to give me
Like who bets on an offensive lineman to score a touchdown?
Plus 100,000 for an offensive lineman to score. Maybe Andy Reid's got some like weird trickery in his book, and he has this jumbo package week 1 that no other team has seen. If it's going to happen ever, it's week 1 where no other team has seen these weird nuanced packages that you put in. So if I had enough of, I guess, money to make off of it, why not?
So here's the kicker. I'm going to add this.
They're going to run like this weird wishbone offense and put the lineman out wide. It's going to be awesome.
So here's the kicker. If there was like a bonus, like a double your money or double your bet for free kind of thing, what team would do it this in week 1?
Whoa.
It's got to be San Francisco or probably the Chiefs.
Chiefs or the Niners. Okay, well, let's dial this back after week 1. Ted, this is a beautiful one. 12.5 points over under. Baker gets progressive on the Browns in week 1.
That's cheeky. I like that.
That was a very PG way of saying that.
Yeah. I mean, Moore and company are going to be really happy to have Baker there. He's going to be healthy. It's the best quarterback that franchise has seen in a long, long time, especially with all the bozos that have been playing there. And I include Mr. Teddy Bridgewater in that, even though I don't think he got the fairest shake at the can. But I mean, he's still going to be facing off against, John Johnson, Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward. Grant Delpit is questionable for that game, but I think that secondary is still so solid that I think this is going to be a close game, and it probably is going to be with like 2.5, 3 points. And I don't see 12 being this ridiculous spread, so I'm taking the way under on this one.
That's not the actual. I created this.
Find that line because I think you're way off.
I just came up with it. The spread is like 2.5.
Yeah, I think Baker in 2 quarterback leagues is the guy should be getting some extra love here, but in this case, it's not going to happen this week. So big under on this one. Sorry, bro.
That's all right.
That line must have fallen out of your mustache. I don't know how you got that.
Wow.
It's a big mustache. Lots of stuff falls out of there. Like actually a sandwich fell out from yesterday. It was good. Good leftovers.
You never go hungry.
No, you can't. That's the beauty of this thing. I don't have one for me.
I think that would be your line. So what's the over under that Derrick Henry gets hurt within the first 3 games?
Oh, I would say so. Like, what are we, like a game and a half, 2 games? Over under, or just picking the amount?
Just picking the amount, or at all. Like, no, it's going to take more than 3 games. It's going to be he's going to get hurt in the first 3 games.
He's going to get hurt in the first 3. I'd say at the very most week 2.
Wow,
I know this. If it happens, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry to so many people, and I might have to just not ever play this.
You're going to put all the bad juju on the man.
That's probably.
You're going to have to go back to your Dexter McCluster jersey.
Hey, I have one of those.
I know.
Don't you be speaking ill of the man McCluster, Ole Miss. The only reason I even knew about that guy is because I was watching an Ole Miss game. He got 4 touchdowns. I'm like, nope, this guy's going to be a stud in the NFL.
I definitely thought you were watching his rap videos.
Later on in life. So let's get into some actual football stuff. We've got a fun one. There's not a whole lot to talk about because there hasn't been any games yet. Let's go around the horn here. Who aren't you guys drafting if you still have a draft to do, which we do next week? So that'll be a lot of fun. Chris, who is a guy that you definitely will not be drafting in our league, or if you have another one you can go into?
Mike Gesicki, tight end for Miami. He's kind of been this guy that everyone's been talking about of like, he's the next great tight end. He's the next top 5 tight end. He's can't miss. He hasn't been that guy. And now there's even more mouths to feed in Miami with Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. I feel like they brought in a third receiver as well. I can't remember right now, but I would be avoiding Mike Gesicki. If you're looking for a tight end late, maybe target someone like Albert O in Denver, someone like that instead of Gesicki.
Okay, Steve.
Mine's not necessarily like I wouldn't draft him, but I will, and you kind of stole thunder on this, but I will not draft Derrick Henry in the really early first rounds, even though I just said if there's a bell cow out there, you should go get him. I agree with Ryan. I think there's too many miles on the tires. I was looking it up. Since 2013, he has over 2,000 carries going back to his Alabama days.
Whoa. 3
seasons of 300 plus touches, and 2 of them are almost 400 yards. So he's I believe he's 28. I would have to look that up. I think he's in his 28th going into like he's getting close to 30 basically. And sooner or later, even the absolute freaks start to decline. And the thing with his touches is they're not like they're
violent.
Yeah, he's not a burner where he's gonna outrun you and then step out, which still that would tread on the tires. He wants to take you and throw you and then smash you into the ground while he's smashing another person into the ground. So sooner or later, it's just not going to happen. I think last year I was telling everybody, like, if somebody wants Derrick Henry from you, sell as high as you possibly can, because he was on pace for, I think in his first 8 games, he almost had 1,000 yards again. So it would have been back-to-back 2,000 yard seasons, which I don't think has ever happened. And I think Fantasy Pros had Derrick Henry's ADP at 5 or 5.5, somewhere in the top half of the first round. And I think that's just too high for me. There's a lot of other people I would draft. I would rather go with one of those top stud young wide receivers like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, obviously, because he just had the Triple Crown, but I will not draft Derrick Henry in the early first stages. If you can get him in the late first round, I think it's really good value, but I'm not drafting him in his high ADP.
Sure,
I think if you get that close, you could just trade down, obviously, grab another pick.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's not like we're saying these people are garbage. Don't ever draft them. It's all in relation to their ADP, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ted, who do you got?
There's so many players on this list that I'm like happy to name, but nobody's taken this guy, and I am staying way away from Ezekiel Elliott. Almost 2,000 touches on in his 6 years that he's been in the league. I think every year it starts to show more and more. We just talked about tread on the tires. This is a big back that has tread on the tires for sure. And I think the thing that's worse about him compared to a guy like Derrick Henry is that a guy like Tony Pollard already exists on this roster in a strong offense. So to me, this might be the better back to draft here anyways. I mean, we're talking about, what's his ADP at? I think he's looking at an ADP of 30. Like, I mean, if we're looking in the 30 hole, I mean, we're looking at guys like, you could take a Josh Allen there. You're looking at Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, Terry McLaurin, Breece Hall. These are all guys that I would draft over Ezekiel Elliott, and they're sitting behind him in ADP. So I think there's way smarter options. If you're going to go Dallas running back, go ahead and take one of these awesome wide receivers or a rookie running back like Breece Hall, and wait till like ADP 70 or 75 to get your hands on a Tony Pollard, who we ultimately think could take over this offense at some point down the road.
Yeah, that's a smart move. I think they've just relied so much on him too. Like they've basically paraded him as, the next, Emmitt Smith or whatever you want to say. They've put too much value in Ezekiel Elliott. and that's never good because there just isn't a player on any given year where you can just parade him around and say, oh, this guy's going to be the absolute best player in the NFL. Now he's playing, let alone in Dallas. He's playing in the most notorious market, and he's going to get eaten alive every game he doesn't have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns and, a couple scanters for, a couple receptions. They rely on that guy. They threw all the money at him. And as good as he was early on, like, you're right, he is one of those guys, and he's more he has a bit of that power, but he's shifty as well. Like at some point, he just breaks down like on the side of the road, and you're done. And when you've got a guy like Pollard, you're right, you can get him way later, cost you less. You can go after either just another higher end running back or easily someone like a wide receiver 1. So
the X factor here is that it's Dallas. I mean, you never know what Dallas is going to do. They could just continue to parade him out there until he's like into his early 40s, force feeding him the ball like 260 touches per year or whatever they decide to do for a guy like Zeke, and just let Tony Pollard go to waste. And that wouldn't surprise me either, because Dallas is like super weird. So
that makes sense. Ted's gonna like this one. Back on my BS this year. Anyone but the Bears. I just do not trust what's going on in Chicago. I think there are good players there, but do not hitch your wagon to anybody on that team. Cole Kmet's pretty decent, but again, there may be one player on that team that you'll be happy to have. At the same time, the Chicago Bears just disappoint every single season. You might get a little bit of love at running back, but I don't know. They don't have a Matt Forte anymore. And what was that? Chicago
I can't believe
Bears.
you even decided to say hitch your wagon again too. I don't even have any Bears on my roster. Oh, I do actually. I don't even have any Bears on my roster yet for you to say don't hitch your wagon to it, so that you can try to steal them away from me and say they're junk and trade for them.
Worked out well. I still didn't win, but it worked out well. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it in a mean way. So I do.
That's apologize. A good point. I think the other guy that a lot of people are taking or not taking or talking about not taking is David Montgomery, and I'm not a fan of David Montgomery. I've seen him like listed in second team on a bunch of stuff. He's playing like special teams in practice the last few weeks or whatever. And in our league, I walked away from a decent trade where I'd have to give up a decent pick to get a good player, but I decided to keep a handcuff running back in Khalil Herbert out in Chicago, because I think that he's actually better than David Montgomery.
Yeah, that's a way better keep. Costs you a lot less.
Well, a rookie keep. We should probably say that I'm not listing Khalil Herbert as the regular keeper. We play in a league where you have to keep one rookie from the previous season. So,
or in my case, I think I kept 4 this year.
Oh, yeah, I mean, great. Well,
when you draft,
congratulations on your win. Please pay your league fees.
Oh shit! I just have to pay you.
Jeez, come on! Don't expect that trophy until I see that money.
Yeah.
And then
you can it's not as big of a threat as you think it is.
The cost of cigarettes has gone way up this year.
Exactly. Yeah. Like my health is more of a concern. Fair enough. How about? Oh, I got to probably do this. I want to make sure I get the right one here. Is it this one? Yeah. There we go. So we're gonna have to update that somehow.
I think we need a guy trip, boys trip, don't we?
Yeah. That's his birthday. We gotta get another one of those going. So sleeper picks, guys that you may have missed if you have drafted, or maybe there's someone you still believe can be available deeper, whether it's a redraft completely or if it's your dynasty leagues. Let's go back to you, Chris. Who's somebody that's still you believe is going to be out there that you could probably snag up for on the cheap or on the waiver wire even?
Yeah, this is a guy that's definitely his ADP has dropped big time. This is a guy that you wouldn't expect to see him being drafted so late. He's so sure-handed. He catches everything. Just throw it to him in his general direction. He's going to catch it. And it's DeAndre Hopkins. And it's simply because of the six-game suspension that he has to start the season. People are kind of a little leery of drafting DeAndre because of that suspension. Plus Hollywood Brown is in Arizona now. So again, more mouths to feed. But I mean, DeAndre is still the wide receiver 1 on that roster when he comes back.
There you go.
I think if he's there available for you late, run to the podium and make that pick.
Mm-hmm. He's not your dad's nuke, but he's still going to really help your roster, especially when it gets time to playoff run, right?
Yeah.
Love that. Ted, because you were still talking, who's your...
So I'm going to go all the way down to ADP 71. And I'm going to go to Dallas, and I'm going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think this guy is a solid receiver. We're looking at guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael
Can you
Thomas.
say that again in case people didn't hear you? How did you say that exactly?
Amon-Ra St. Brown or
no,
Juju
Juju. You said it funny. That's all.
Juju Smith-Schuster?
Yeah, that's right.
Rashad Penny, Adam Thielen is in there, who I think is can be still comparable and serviceable. But there's a lot of guys that are sitting in that sort of 70 to like 78 spot, and you could do a lot. You could do a lot worse than Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially in that area. So you could probably even select him earlier than that. You're probably looking at like maybe in like the 60 spot or earlier. Because I think this guy is going to have a really good year and is going to be like a really solid performer. He's already sort of proven that he can do it too. So I don't know where all the hate is coming from to be drafted so low. So if you can get your hands on a guy like St. Brown, then I would definitely jump at it.
Lovely.
I agree, Ted. I couldn't agree more.
Maybe you'd even keep him on your roster if you.
I would. I might.
I might.
A man of few words.
He doesn't have many words left.
Only got a few words left.
Yeah.
I'm running out.
He's on a pitch count, folks. Steve, who do you got? Who's your deep?
Okay, I actually went like super deep here. I'm into the
sex tape.
Wow.
It's the Brooklyn Nine-Nine thing. It has nothing to do with real stuff. Yeah,
you're
good.
Sorry, I don't watch that show. Kind of like you in Breaking Bad. Are you done that yet?
Hey, 3 episodes left.
You said that like a month ago.
How are you said that like a year ago? How are you not done?
No, a year ago? Get out of here, Chris. It was 2 years ago. Get your facts straight.
Like he thinks he has this really busy life. How busy is your life that you can't finish a show?
It's not. Like I can see him from here. Actually,
I have to reserve the TV in this household, guys. I have to. It's a timeshare.
Who pays for it?
You have a phone? Watch on your phone if you have to.
Remind your children.
Hey guys, let's let Steve pick his sleeper. Come on now.
No, let's all shit on Ted some more. We're not watching Breaking Bad.
Oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
New podcast idea.
Yeah.
I am picking Laviska Shenault.
I can't pronounce that, so you're gonna have to tell me again.
Shenault.
Laviska Shenault Jr. He's only 23 years old. If you watched any of his college highlights from Colorado, he reminds me of a bigger, faster, maybe even shiftier Tavon Austin. So he's just got all of those like flashy kind of plays. He was super productive. Went to Jacksonville. We all know the Urban Meyer story. Nobody was productive for Urban Meyer. They actually just traded him today to Carolina, where he's going to be playing with Baker, and Baker can get him the ball. I'm just looking at Fantasy Pros here. His ADP is 275. So I like these kind of very end of the draft, maybe even free agents later on, where you can pick up a guy who's going to well exceed his position. Maybe it's the very last pick of the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, and you pick up a guy like Laviska Shenault, and he can be Laviska Shenault Jr., correct. And maybe he can start on one of those. We've got quite a few wide receivers that we start. I think possibly 5. I haven't looked at 5 to 7 different ones. He may be able to get you 6 to 8 points a week, and that's going to be the difference between winning a league if you are starting a ton of roster spots. So that's my pick. New place, new him. I've got faith.
I like it.
I feel like he's one of those guys that, like, in order for him to find success in the NFL, he needs to get that Cordero Patterson treatment and like get more running back touches, more jet sweep touches. It just less focus as a receiver and more focus of just let's use this guy as a weapon and put the ball in his hands. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Open space.
So, like by that standard, I mean, in 4 or 5 years, Thno should pop, be a huge contributor.
So bank this episode. You guys remember 2022 when we were harping this guy? Yeah, it paid off. No one even does fantasy football even more. My guy.
Ryan, is there a bear? Is there a bear that you would draft?
Right now, no. I don't.
No?
I'm gonna look at my roster and then my last team and find out I actually have a bear or like their defense or something. Which, first of all, why are any leagues allowing defenses and kickers still? Just before I do mine,
I don't need the kicker anymore. I really don't.
You don't need either of them though.
You don't need it either. Ever since our league got rid of it, like I don't miss it at all.
Like,
And
would you not rather
used to be
have
one of those people that so most traditional leagues have a kicker, they have a defense. And I remember when we were talking about switching, I was like, no, like, why are we switching? There's still value in it. And I think I lasted maybe 4 minutes. New sex tape name.
You like beat me to it. Fuck.
And then I quit. I was like, you know what? You're right. There is no value in understanding when a defense is going to get turnovers and if they're going to put up points, but maybe they put up points in garbage time or like trying to predict when a head coach is going to allow a kicker to kick a ball is the stupidest thing in all of sports.
No,
and, like to okay, the Rouge, we're right. Yeah.
No, okay, but as bad as the Rouge is, and I agree,
Chris has got one here.
The worst rule. It's the I touched it last rule in the CFL. You fumbled the ball. Yeah. I touch it last before it goes out of bounds. I don't gain possession. I just touch it last. It's my ball.
But that's bad. Super bad.
Those are close, actually.
But a free point
because you didn't do your job.
Which also happened in the Grey Cup. That's a Canadian championship game.
Imagine deciding a championship in a league with professional athletes on a point
just
for
crushing
a bad
one to the stands. I'm like,
we win.
You did a bad job.
They were literally kicking the ball back and forth.
Yeah.
That's a terrible one, and you're right. But I think the Rouge is probably
like on super bad when what's his name punts the ball into the stands there. Imagine getting a point for that.
Like when
I will say the only value in kickers and defenses is if you're playing in a league where there's kickers and defenses. Hopefully you're playing with people who are stupid and they pick their defense and their kicker really early, and you
that
just
always happens.
Giggle all the way to the bank as they're making their pick. And the worst part of it, actually, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, is the first person to kick it or pick a kicker or a defense. If your clock is at like say 2 minutes to make your pick, why does it always take somebody like a minute 59 to pick a kicker?
Yeah,
or a defense? Just pick one. You're gonna drop.
You're gonna stream them.
You're gonna stream them anyways. If you don't pick your defense and your kicker in the very last rounds, you are an absolute fool, and I will live and die by that.
Yes,
all of this. In my other league, I picked up the Ravens defense with my last one. Gonna win that league.
Yeah, in a league that for a defense that can score like 20 points in a game.
Yeah. Well, it's a crapshoot anyways, so I might as well pick
what if it's a kicker year?
What if it's a kicker year?
Okay, so that's fair. If it is a kicker year and it's every 4 years, I think, right? That's a kicker year.
I guess because if we are talking fantasy and strategy, I do always like drafting having the quarterback kicker stack. So if you play in a league with kickers still, try to get the kicker that matches the team of your quarterback.
What if you have Justin Fields?
So this is the first year that I've ever heard of kicker strategy.
Get
kicker stack. Yeah. Like a 2-pad stack.
Yeah.
Well, Justin Fields might be the other bear that I would draft for.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should do that.
Yeah, I see what you mean, Chris, because if your quarterback doesn't score the touchdown, you're getting the attempt at the 3 points from your kicker.
Yeah.
I just think that's like almost like shooting yourself in the foot. It's like if my quarterback
But if he scores the touchdown,
then I'm only getting the 1 point from it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but if my quarterback doesn't score, then I'm hoping on the 3 points. Like you're always missing out somewhere. But I understand the strategy. It's when they have a drive, there's a chance your team is putting up points.
It's like when you play in multiple fantasy leagues, right? It's like if I go all this way on one league, I'm going to go all the other way on the other league, and so you can only really win in one league. But I'll tell you what, people come to this show because it's the only show where you can get kicker advice. And it's good advice.
It might be the only show.
It's good advice, yeah.
If you scour the internets and you find another show talking about kickers for longer than 10 seconds, like the show, then maybe we're
kickers are people too.
They are people too. Just in case anybody forgot, I did not mention my guy yet. James Cook from the Buffalo Bills. They went and drafted said running back this year. Zach Moss, Singletary, yeah, maybe. I think there's a very good chance. I've seen him go in drafts. Unless you're drafting rookies in the first round, you may see him go a lot higher. But other than that, if you're seeing, essentially a redraft or whatever, he's available really, really late. You're going to get a guy that you can stash away. He doesn't have to start for you. You might have him as like your weak flex at best to start for the first few weeks. But I mean, the Buffalo Bills, they have been proven to have a decent run game from time to time, and I think they may have found their guy. I mean, they have a pretty decent run or a decent quarterback. They've got some okay receivers, and I think there's a few people that may have the Bills try to make a run this year. And quite frankly, I think James Cook could be a star. He might be one of those guys that we're talking about in, even week 4, week 5, like a Dawson Knox kind of guy, or Ted you brought up, or a Jody Fortson. I'm just kidding. We didn't bring up Jody Fortson.
Nobody can be Jody Fortson.
No one's going to be like him. He needs to get it. He had 2 touchdowns. Was it week 2 preseason? Had 2 touchdowns?
Oh, that don't give too many secrets away, because
he's available in every league.
Drafting Jody Fortson,
0.01% of leagues. I'm going to check in
available in every possible league. Yeah.
The only I think Cook is a talented back as well. The only thing that scares me is obviously red zone touches, because there's a certain quarterback that actually acts as their red zone running back, right? So that's the only scary thing. I think he kind of vultures that stuff. But
sure,
yeah, I mean, late round pick, if it's a guy you want to move a little early on, yeah, that's talented player.
He's going to be available to you. So again, there's a running back. There's the 0 RB strategy. By all means, you can get him a little bit later.
I am not in on James Cook. I almost actually picked him for our earlier part, where this is a guy that I'm just not going to draft at all. I think he is running. I think he is talented.
Sure, he's a talented guy. That's not a question.
We showed what he could do at Georgia. Him and Zamir White were a 1-2 punch. I think he's just going to always be that back who needs the 1 or a 2 to be effective. I don't think he's ever going to amount to be a stud running back. So I'm on record now saying this. So if he's
good as a spell back, basically.
Yeah, if he becomes this stud of a back, you guys can hit me up. You can say how stupid I am. That's totally fine. He also, I don't know if he was super nervous, but I've heard a couple interviews of his, and it just doesn't sound like there's a lot going through the ears with that kid. Like, no,
bold. That's bold.
Well, in his interviews, this was like pre-draft process, so maybe he was just like sort of nervous or whatever, but people would be asking him questions and it was like, yes, and then he would just sit there. You're like, okay, like, do you plan to elaborate or anything like that? I think one of the ones I heard was on Rich Eisen podcast, and I was like, I don't know if this guy just doesn't want to talk to the media, if he's just pulling like a Bill Belichick kind of thing. It just rubbed me the wrong way, mixed with, I think, the fact that he was in a committee, and I think he will be in a committee, and I think he's just going to learn how to be a spellback in a committee. I do not think James Cook will be the guy we all think he's going to be. Maybe in like 3, 4, 5 years, but they've got Zach Moss, they've got Singletary. They have.
Okay, so can I debate that for a second? Pre-draft interviews, and we're getting close to being done here. Bo Callahan, he didn't have the greatest pre-draft. He still got picked by the Seahawks, and I think it worked out pretty well for them. So, I mean,
that's you're treading into like scary water. Just dropping a movie reference. It's very likely that Steve's never seen the movie.
That's true. That's true.
But
there's no way. There's no way Steve's seen that movie.
This is a late round pick. This is a flyer guy. This is a sleeper. I think he ticks all those boxes. This isn't CJ Spiller where people are expecting him to be a thing and he's not gonna be a thing.
Yeah, you're
so I see where Ryan's coming from, but I mean, all of those things you said, Steve, other than him having not much between the ears, I don't know about that. All of those things are correct, but I mean, yeah, it's not. If you want to gamble, a third or fourth to last pick on the guy,
because Steve doesn't gamble either, so I could understand that.
His ADP, again, I'm just going by Fantasy Pros because I have it up here. His ADP is 100, so he's a top one. He's a top 100 player in this league, ahead of guys like Tyler Lockett.
10th round.
Here you go.
Ahead of guys like Tyler Lockett, is what you said.
Yeah, ahead of guys like Tyler Lockett. If we're trying to bank on rookies, he's ahead of a guy like Treylon Burks, ahead of a guy like George Pickens, even Alexander Madison. He's ahead of him. There's a guy that could spell his brother off and be an RB1 or get traded. I think where people are drafting him because he's a rookie is way too high for what he's going to be this year, and I believe for his whole career.
I'm just going on that he's a guy you can get late. Basically, I'm not saying you should be drafting.
So we're literally going from this conversation of sleeper
to just don't draft him at all. And
he's overrated in his ADP, or he's a sleeper. So that should be a fun one to maybe watch over the course of the season.
Yeah,
just because you don't have any hair on your shoulders doesn't mean you can rip me like this.
Like one or two up here.
Yeah, I have that
spelled on here. You'd be able to see that one hair.
I could literally shave BBHV into my chest. That's how much hair I got.
Do it. Prove it or it didn't happen.
Exactly.
Hey,
boys,
I mean, you shaved the 6-pack this year. Look great.
Oh man, people love it. People love it. Boys, this has been a great first episode. We're not going to do one next week because there will be nothing to talk about quite yet. And this is just to get it all started. So we will come after week 1. So the Tuesday after week 1, like we usually do. We'll have tons to talk about. Chris will likely still be smoking a 6-pack of Marlboros. He'll have like a carton right beside him.
I don't foresee anything changing anytime soon with my voice, guys.
We're gonna have story time with old man Chris.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the time that the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson.
Like I said, though, this is an improvement. Like it was worse than this.
Can you can you just give us some sort of audible example of what maybe your voice sounded like prior to this?
Well, saying like words of wisdom.
It was so much worse. Like when I would talk on the phone at work, I was like, oh, like the first word out of my mouth, I'm like, holy crap, like who's talking? Like, is that coming from me right now? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just used to it now, but yeah, it was worse last week.
Does your head voice sound like that voice too? Like when you're thinking in your head, like, who is this? Does it still sound like, who is this?
No.
Like when you go drink your pop and you think you're drinking root beer, but it's actually Coke, and you're like, oh, I was not expecting that.
Wow.
So we're comparing his voice to 2 different types of pop. Hey man,
are
you more of a root beer voice, or are you?
That surprised me when I spoke. I was not expecting that.
Whatever.
I can't tell if he froze or he's just disappointed in me.
No, he's moving his
I'm here.
I do have one question. When you did in this series, when you were in that game and you got cross-checked, right before that, did you maybe say something to the other guy that may have?
It's friggin' Chris. Of course, he said something to the guy.
Actually, no.
Maybe not. Maybe he didn't say anything, but he probably spent the whole game annoying the hell out of the guy.
No. It was the first period. I was taking a shot, and right as I was taking the shot, he hit me. But later in that game, I did have one of his teammates tell me he was going to fight me in the parking lot. So
that is a Vancouver thing. So
I was blowing him kisses. He didn't like it.
Stuff like that happens when you beat a team 25-0.
Well, you had to blow him kisses because you couldn't talk. So that makes sense.
Well, exactly. Well, it turns out one of the guys on my team kind of knows the guy that wanted to fight me in the parking lot, and he's like a crackhead or something like that. He's yes. he's got some issues.
Yeah, he doesn't do drugs. He does like drugs.
Drugs.
The real ones. The real ones. Boys, this has been an absolute wicked first show. It's going to be a podcast. We also are a podcast this year. So you can listen to us on basically any device that carries podcast technology. Make sure to check out. You're very good at this. Make sure to go to manscaped.com. And we got this neat little promo code you guys may want to plug in when you get there. Free shipping, 20% off, BBHV20. Thank you, Chris Phillips, for making that a reality to everyone.
No, thank you to the big boobs and hairy vaginas for making that happen.
You never disappoint, buddy. So make sure you check out our podcast. Make sure you can go back and check out the YouTube video. We have a YouTube channel as well. This is where you're going to be getting all of your fantasy advice. We're going to have a few guests again this season. Hopefully Jim comes back on our show. We continue to ask Jody Fortson to come on our show. He has a job now.
Do not on our show, sorry?
Pardon me?
You asked Jody Fortson to do what on our show?
To visit.
To show up for an episode.
To visit.
Shut up.
He's going to visit.
Shut up. Go smoke a Marlboro. Oh, my goodness. How old are we again? You guys are fathers. Shut up. We don't need to get into that. Yeah.
Steve's just like hiding behind his pop filter.
Maybe I can get away from it.
I'm actually crying.
That helped no one. FantasyCast on the Dean Blundell Network, if you didn't see at the bottom there. Hopefully we're back for a second episode this year. We didn't get canceled last year, so there's a very good chance they will not even notice, and we'll still be here a week or so from now. So bid you all to do. Good luck in your drafts and fantasy football where you can.